All right, what is going on, Hot Take Nation? It is David Ramsden here for another episode of the Hot Take of the Day podcast. This is part two because the guest I have today is one of my favorite Twitter personalities, if not my favorite Twitter personality. She's like the Pope when she blesses the EIA numbers and a whole bunch of other things. Huge following. Tracy Shuchart is with us today, who is also Chai Girl, the Twitter personality. Tracy, how are you today? I'm so glad that you came on the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Okay, so we want to start with the EIA numbers because truly, like 8:30 Wednesday mornings, I know the EIA weekly status report comes out. I don't even read the original report. I just go and like refresh your profile until you say something. And today you said boom, and I was like, oh, this is good. And then immediately Energy Equities, like you caused like $10 billion of value to be created in a second.
Yeah, everything went bid. That was great.
It was good because I know you've been bullish commodities. We're going to talk about that, but let's talk about the EIA numbers and what you've seen and why you're bullish oil in particular right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, as far as the numbers we had a big draw, just over 9 million barrels. We did have imports down and exports up. Still, that's a really nice draw. We'll take it. We had a little bit of a distillate draw, negligible, but after a build, that looked nice. We did still have a gasoline build, not as big as last week. So the numbers look good. And the second week in a row that we've had a draw in Cushing because we weren't drawing Cushing for a while. So, and that's the actual WTI contract. So the numbers look good to me today.
They do look really good, and it is amazing how sentiment changed from March from March, obviously last year, and you know there were cracks in the market, and I know a lot of analysts were saying we really are oversupplied, and this was even pre-COVID. Obviously, COVID hit, changed the demand scenario, and then November hit with the vaccines, and like it doesn't even matter. I think I read an article yesterday that Mark Rossano tweeted out. That was like in Germany, they're seeing the efficacy of the AstraZeneca vaccine is like super low above 65-year-olds, and nobody cares. Like we're just so past where we were. Well, what do you make of the euphoria and optimism around the commodity versus the underlying companies that produce it and their balance sheets and how we should be thinking about playing this if you were an investor?
Well, I mean, obviously everybody's euphoric commodities right now, and it's fine. I mean, you have to, we went from negative $37, right? So you can't get much lower than that. And people are looking at investments. And I think people are also looking at the fact that, we're going to have permanent shut-ins after all of this in the United States and elsewhere, right? And we're eventually going to have demand start coming back. So it's kind of, forward thinking as far as that's concerned. And then if you look at something like the metals complex, the mining complex, you've seen this, this resurgence in China, right? So you had a ton of demand. So you saw, steel, copper, tin, all the base metals basically just take off this year, really starting in November.
If you think about like how much is true demand versus inflation expectations versus supply chain breakdown?
I think it's a combination of everything. A weaker dollar certainly helps. You had China sort of just front running everything. And then we had a lot of supply chain breakdowns, which we're kind of seeing in the semiconductor industry right now, right? And we're kind of seeing the fallout, slowly. We had big supply chain breakdowns right initially, and that's what started everybody wanting to bring back supply chains home, diversify supply chains, things like that. But we're still seeing those ripple effects. And so that's part of it as well.
And so you are an American citizen living in Canada. And so I am a dual citizen living in the US, but I'm definitely more American. When I worked at Anadarko in Canada, I think people thought I was like brash, like an American. And a lot of Canadians told me that I should leave the country. So I have, and now I've fully embraced all of my American Canada's lockdowns seem
Yes.
absolutely draconian. I was seeing that. I've heard a rumor. I don't know if this is going to come to pass, but I've heard a rumor that Justin Trudeau has said one imported case is too much. And that the rumor is if you are out of Canada and you fly back, you're going to have to pay for a 14-day hotel and quarantine. You can't even go home because Canada is being so worried about it. And then interprovincial travel is stopped. Is this really going on? How is this? I mean, I know Canadians are very polite, but like, what's
Yeah,
going on?
it's a little crazy here. I'm not going to lie. I mean, especially with how many cases there actually are, and things of that nature, where Canada is on the list. I mean, we're way far down on the list, but it just seems that they're it's kind of getting worse. Like, it sounds like their next 6 month plan is kind of New Zealand style, right?
It seems like that. Do you think? Because I've been thinking about this, right? So number one, I mean, I know my parents live in Calgary. It's cold, and so like I couldn't even if I wanted to go out and protest the lockdowns, it's too cold. So really, I'll just kick it off until April. April was always the best time in universities because it was the first time we all got out of our parkas and snowsuits. So you got to reintroduce yourself to your friends. But is part of this, do you think that, Canada's injected stimulus, the US has too, and it's not like Canada's being exclusive in its travel restrictions, but is it that they want to pump stimulus into the economy and they don't want that stimulus to leave the country? So they're trying to like make everyone stay and spend their money and grow local businesses. And they're basically like deglobalizing as a way to stimulate the economy, or is there something else going on? Because I can't understand these lockdowns at this point.
I can't really understand that as well, especially, you starting to see the United States open up more. Everybody's starting to announce measures. Some states are opening up schools back, things like that. And it seems like Canada is doing the exact opposite. It's kind of going more the way of Europe, Germany, than say, the rest of North America. I can't really, I mean, as far as I can tell, everything they're doing is hurting the economy more and more. And people aren't going out and spending. Everything's shut. So really, everybody's ordering from Amazon. They're not going out to eat. They're not supporting local businesses because local businesses aren't open. So I'm not really clear in what their sort of line of thinking is. Because to me, it seems like they're pumping all this stimulus, creating more and more and more and more debt, and not really getting anything in return, right? I mean, they're paying people $2,000 a month, in unemployment.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see. But let's talk about Canada, because I think that this is a rightful thing. Over the last 5 years, since 2014, the Canadian oil patch never recovered the way the US did. And in part, it was because the Permian was drawing huge capital. There's so much stacked pay. And Canada was really pushing, even though it's like 1.6% of the CO2 emissions in the world, it was really pushing a green, green, green. Oil is bad. Sands are bad. Vivian Krause has done some really nice work on the campaign out of the US to punish Canadian tar sands, which are really oil sands.
Right.
But so now with the Biden administration coming in, there's a lot of Canadians pointing south of the border saying it's not going to be fun. We've had the last 5 years and this is awful. And they canceled Keystone right away. Right. What's your take on the need of Keystone, the impact of Keystone? Is this more just messaging about how bad it's going to be, or do you think Keystone itself was a huge loss for Canada?
I think Keystone is a big loss. I mean, you saw everybody get very upset. You had, Kenny, the premier of Alberta, was basically begging not to have this happen. Justin Trudeau also, had made everybody had made a statement about it. Also, Canada put a lot of money into it, like Canada. Remember, Justin Trudeau said, we're going to pay for it, right? The country's going to pay for it. The country's going to put money into it. So a lot of money has already been spent and wasted. And so it was a big disappointment for Canada, though they probably should have foreseen that happening, since Biden did kind of allude to the fact that this was going to happen. It is a big hit, but, it's also a big hit to the United States, right? So there's two sides to this. It's a hit to the United States because now you're going to, you still have slow Canada flows, right? And you're still going by train, which is dangerous. inefficient and expensive, right? If you're also trying to, shut down new leases and permits on federal lands, you're starting to, U.S. is going to have to import. Going to be just as they were becoming a net exporter, they're going to have to start importing more. And now what's going to happen is they're going to have to get that from the Middle East, which costs a lot more, and shipping is a lot more. So it's detrimental to the United States as well in that respect. On the Canada side, we'll go ahead.
No, yeah, no. I agree, and we'll talk about it. But it seems to me that from a Canadian perspective, the biggest difference is, and this is what I don't understand why the government doesn't understand it, is Canada. All it does is it widens differentials because you need to, or it widens transportation costs because we're going to have to continue to ship on trains, which incidentally, the trains are owned by, at least in part, Warren Buffett. So it seems interesting that, right, shocker, but it seems shocking that, trains are bad because you have to load them, you have to haul with diesel, you're backfilling. There's a whole bunch of reasons you wouldn't want to use trains over a pipeline. So we'll get the oil here. It's just that it crushes differentials and transportation costs from Canada. Is that a fair assessment in your view?
Yeah, I absolutely. Absolutely. Which is, why that, all kind of ties in together, which is why if you had the pipeline, it would be more efficient, faster, inexpensive, and you could import more from Canada, right, as you needed it, instead of having to import from the Middle East or, some Colombia or, somewhere else that had heavier crude. You can't, Mexico is kind of tapped out, their production is way down. So, you have to go longer distances to sort of find that oil. On the Canada side, now, if you look at the Canada side, that's a terrible thing. However, it could also be a positive thing because now you have Trans Mountain come to light, right? So if you can expand Trans Mountain, make it bigger, you can get to Asian customers. You can sell to China, and you can sell to South Korea, and Japan, and whatnot. So, and that would help Canada sort of diversify who they're selling to, right? Because their biggest customer is the United States. So, in fact, it could end up being a blessing in disguise if they get Trans Mountain through.
Do you think they will? If I recall, the Trans Mountain pipeline was the Kinder pipeline that ended up being bought by the Canadian government, and then there was questions about how it was going to go, and BC is hugely opposed, notwithstanding the fact that the last time, when I was in middle school, and to be honest, I have to question everything I've ever been taught by people because I'm now concerned they were just pushing a narrative. But my understanding is 110% of the province of British Columbia has some sort of land claim on it by some sort of Native American indigenous tribe. Yeah. And so you're trying to build a pipeline through land claims and forests and
I think there's 139 claims on that pipe that they have to get permission through for that pipeline for Indian tribes or indigenous tribes. So that's a lot. It's a lot of red tape.
But that's the move, is if Biden doesn't move, which it doesn't appear like he's going to really move on Keystone because there's no need, at least now. So Trans Mountain is Canada's choice, and it's really up to Justin Trudeau to push that through, which doesn't really seem that favorable. So it brings me to I've recently come around to the opinion. I've been a huge advocate, and I continue to be an advocate of energy, obviously, and it's not oil and gas only. It's oil and gas and nuclear and wind and solar, because our world is made better by energy, whatever it is.
Right.
And that we have to look at trade-offs. But similar to coal, which does produce more CO2 than natural gas, as an example, but similar to coal, we've been so vilified as an industry that, companies like North Face won't sell us jackets, and the New York pension fund just divested $4 billion of fossil fuels, and Larry Fink, despite having a private plane that's like a G650, is and flies himself at 1,100 kilograms of fuel per hour, but he's very concerned about it. So I've come up with the concept that we should just shrug, which is, maintain production, minimize costs, and let production decline so that the supply demand for the world is in balance, but then prices have to come up. And only when the consumer starts screaming that gas is $4.50 or $5 at the pump, and that heating your house is 30 or 40% more expensive, and that when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, you can't just flip your light on in California or your air conditioning on.
Right.
Do you think that like from the Canadian experience over the last 6 years where the East and BC are so against it, do you think that is something that's going to happen and come, or are we too stuck on our own ways that we're just going to keep thinking we can grow our way out of debt?
I think that's going to happen. I mean, production is going to go down, right? It's going to go down. There's not enough CapEx, right? Further down on the line. When we're talking about, we have, as far as wells drilled, we had like over 20,000 wells drilled in 2019. The U.S. is down to 6,900 that were drilled, in 2020. So, I mean, we don't have anything in the pipeline. Canada has the same problem, right? Production is going to decline until there's money infused into the industry, real money infused into the industry again. So that's going to naturally happen, and then people will discover, and we'll see $5 gas again for sure.
I totally agree. So if you were to, given what Biden has done, are you feeling good or bad about the Canadian relative value, and is Biden just messaging his base but won't actually follow through, in your opinion? Or is this like in 60 days when this moratorium's done, a whole bunch of bad things are happening?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, supposedly today he's signing another executive order that's going to prolong that and make it temporary. However, he's already had, the Indian tribe in Utah already, filed a claim, and they got that, they won that claim in court already. So, I think that, trying to ban new permits and leases on federal lands is going to be difficult, because I think, it would be a good time to be, a lawyer in the industry. I think you're going to see a lot of litigation going on as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
So I think that'll, be wrapped up in courts forever, should it come to pass that this is a permanent thing. As far as the immediate future, all these companies kind of locked up their leases and their new permits this summer. They already, anticipated this move may happen. So, in the short term, it's okay. But over the longer term, if it becomes permanent, it suddenly becomes very, very bullish.
I want to know about how you grew your Twitter base, and not because not as like but how do you stand out in Twitter so that you became a voice? Because I think about it from a narrative of media and from trusted sources. You're someone who I trust on Twitter. And Danielle DiMartino Booth had a great thing. She said that she only follows 500 people. And so if she's going to follow someone new, she looks at her old list and like cuts the other people down, so that's how she keeps her feed relevant and I put this in quotes, honest. But you've been on Twitter for a long time, and you have a huge following, and people really look to you to give commentary. How did you get there? And was it intentional, and now that you are so big, does it sort of like snowball where you feel like you have to continue giving the people what they want?
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, when I first started, it was back in 2009. And I remember when I got my first 100 followers, I was like, I can't believe 100 people want to hear what I have to say, right? I guess, it's just really, I had my account actually locked for a very long time. And really when I unlocked it, is really when it kind of exploded, which was, I don't know, I had it locked for 4 or 5 years, and then I unlocked it. And there you go. And it's and it's also I've been on for all the big things in oil, right? I was there, on in 2014, 16, that thing, so and I always try to, I try to look for stuff that everybody's not talking about, right? So I assume there's, when something big happens, you see like 10,000 people tweet about it, right? So, I try to keep it relevant because I really try to, what I'm looking at is what I tweet, right? You know what I mean? Like when I'm going through my day and sort of gathering my fundamental analysis on market, that's what I'm tweeting out. And it's generally stuff that other people aren't looking at.
What concerns you right now when you look at what could upset this run? Goldman Sachs has come out and said 65. I don't have banks on the high list of my trusted advisors because they're typically talking their book and they're walking it up. And which actually I want to talk to you about GameStop because I assume you followed the GameStop. But what do you think trips up this oil thing, and do we have a blow off top and then we kind of come into real valuations, or is this true? Because what I've heard from multiple people is people like Pioneer, who is a great company with a great balance sheet, but their stock price is discounting sort of $85 oil. And some of these guys are discounting like massive inflation in commodity prices, and that the fundamentals of the business, notwithstanding, we're not talking about Tesla, but like if you were just to be a private buyer of an oil and gas asset, the companies are trading too high. What trips this up or trips the overall market up that makes fundamentals matter again? Because it feels insane. It feels like we're in a 2000 like bubble, and I know you remember what it was like in 2000.
Well, I mean, I think markets in general are like that. I mean, if you look at tech, look at growth stocks, I mean, they're out of control, right? So for me, looking at the oil industry, really, this year, the lows this year, we were looking at, 80, 90% off of these stocks from, their all-time highs. So to me, and looking at, if you're a fund manager and you're looking for bargains, that's the industry to do it. You want to look for stuff that's 80 to 90% off, right? So I think it's a good thing for these companies, and I don't really think they're completely overvalued at this point because the market is forward looking, right? So, if you're, I'm guessing people that are investing in these stocks are, investing for a longer term, right? Because they see what's happening in the industry, they see production falling off, they see, as much as we love renewables, the transition is going to be a lot slower than people think, right? We have a lot of lofty goals, but in reality, it doesn't work that way because, you have to really overhaul entire grid systems. And you look at the problems that, the UK is having or California is having. And so, if that's the model, it's a disaster. So it's going to take a lot longer than people think. And again, with, declining production, declining CapEx, you're looking out where, I don't think demand's going to fall as quickly as people think. So I think it's a good place to be, even though it's still really hated right now.
Right. Well, so let's talk about the overall market, because I mean, again, I think that if you think about fundamentals, every chart you see, and especially the people I follow on Twitter, which I should probably follow some more optimistic people, but like everything is like the spike of price to earnings ratios, the spike of price to sales. I did a technical Tuesday on Tesla where Tesla's trading at 27 times revenue. They're an $800 billion company with $35 billion in revenue, and their entire profitability is based on selling EV carbon credits to other car manufacturers in California. And without that, they couldn't have been in the S&P, which helped drive their stock up 25% because every passive fund manager needed to own it. Like the Fed, so what I don't understand is the Fed is seeing this. And on the one hand, you have Janet Yellen coming out saying, well, the Fed economic policy can be used to reduce inequality and justice. Well, only if you start taxing unrealized capital gains and just hand it to people. I mean, the moral hazard right now, and GameStop is like, I used to think Tesla was going to be the thing that brings the market over, but GameStop has been insane. And I wanted you to take a moment, because I'm sure you've been following it, to explain to people who might not understand what's happening and how social media is being used to coordinate effectively boiler room, like I would argue illegal activity, but somehow like
it is, but it's not. Basically it's taking, I mean, it's a penny stock with a huge, it's trading like a penny stock with a huge, huge, huge market cap, right? You're having $20 billion things a day on that thing. High. That's insane, right? And as soon as the problem with it is, as soon as you stop like pumping those stocks and, you create this, is the problem is when you pull out of that, right? I don't think that the market's going to be able to handle that, right? Because you pump this all up. I mean, literally, when they stop pumping that stock and they pull it out of the market, I'm worried about the S&P, like the broader index, because I don't think it'll be able to handle that kind of liquidity draw that quickly.
Now, what is the background for those who haven't been following GameStop? And again, it's just a weird one because it's happening in AMC, but it appears to me GameStop is a sleepy little company that everyone hated and was short. And it was trading at like $25 a share around the election. And somehow people got wind that maybe even the company that was short, which is this Melvin Capital, at least was one, like they had more shares short than the entire outstanding float of
it was 151.8%.
So there's
at the top.
Yeah. And so for those who don't really follow it, you have, let's say 10 million outstanding shares, not a real number, but like someone has borrowed 15 million shares to sell, which there's only 10 million. So from like a Bitcoin supply demand, as soon as people realized this and started buying it, then when you're short, you have margin coverage, and the further up it goes, the more coverage that you need. And so then guys have been squeezing and they just buy it. And so it was up another 100 and something percent, like almost to over $300. It's up like 1,000% in 2 months for a company that presumably is worth zero.
Well, exactly. I mean, really, this just started in a week. I mean, forget, it took a couple of months to get up to like a $50 mark. After $50, it went to $335 in like a week. I mean, that's crazy, right? For a company that didn't do anything, nothing changed.
Does the SEC have a role here? And I'll use, there's two people, and I never pronounce his last name correctly, but Chamath. Everyone should know who I'm talking about. I think he's going to run for governor now in California. He's like the SPAC king, which to me is like the ultimate promoted, where a company raises a blank check amount of money, then goes out to buy another company at a premium, and the managers get a promote on the blank check for the company they overpaid for. And somehow this is a business, and 2020 saw more SPACs come to market than ever. And guy is the king. And so he's tweeting out, I want to buy some GME at whatever, 150.
115, yep.
And then Elon Musk gets in the game because he knows he's no stranger to shorts. And he's like, let's go stonk market, which is the Twitter term for ridiculous.
And then he pumped AMC last night. Didn't you see? He goes, I love AMC popcorn or something like that.
Like, I mean, like this is the world's richest man who is worth $200 billion, who is literally toying with regulators. I mean, if you remember, apparently he was high or drunk or both or not when he tweeted, funding assured, $420 a share to sell Tesla. He got fined $10 million from the SEC. Tesla got fined $10 million. He had to give up his chairman of the board. He's now worth 10 times more than that, the richest man on earth. And he goes on Twitter to troll the SEC, effectively being like, come and get me. Like, how is this not a dream? Like, we're in this Alice in Wonderland. There's like Cheshire cats and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side of that is, which is amazing because I was watching it, is that, people are looking at it like, look at Elon. He's trying to help these little guys not little guys, but, retail traders on Reddit overtake another billionaire, right? So they're like, this guy is great, right? So that's the other
people, the Robin Hood, literally.
Exactly, right? So I saw that side of it, and then obviously, then you have the other side that everybody's like, where's the SEC, right?
Where do you land on this? Because I think social media is a great example, right? I don't want to get into fraud in the election because I actually don't, regardless of whether there's fraud, I'm sure there's fraud always on both sides. But what I think the biggest influence was the media publishes polls. And the polls going into this were so in favor of Biden. Like, he was leading in states like Arizona and Nevada and Indiana and Georgia and Pennsylvania by 10 points. Yeah. And so if you're frustrated with the political system, which most moderates are, you're going to say, well, you know what? I'm kind of more libertarian than either of these clowns. And so since my guy's going to lose, like in Colorado, I could have voted for anyone. It wouldn't have mattered because the Dems were going to win. And so I could throw my vote away to the libertarian based on the fact the media told me that my guy was going to get crushed. Lo and behold, he didn't get crushed, and maybe my libertarian vote would have made the difference. And in 4 states, the libertarian votes were effectively the difference. And you can't tell me a libertarian would have voted Biden over Trump in, like, you know, net given the regulations.
Right.
So I'm curious, like, how does the world react to the fact that Amazon and Google and Apple can shut down Parler, and then Twitter can just say, nope, we're just taking Trump off. And then Elon Musk can be like, well, I like Etsy, and the stock triples. And then I like AMC, and then people are getting crushed. Like, I mean, how do they not take action against this? Or do they just say this is part of the market process?
I don't know. You know, I think it's a very slippery slope, right? And I think it's kind of, there's a fine line between what would be considered legal and what would not be considered legal. Obviously, Elon texting about his own company is, you know, it's not right. But there's nothing that says he can't pump another company, right? You know, I think
true.
Right. And there's literally, you know, and he could say he's not, you know, I mean, technically the way he's doing it, you know, I love Etsy, I bought this dog toy, right? He's not saying go buy Etsy, right? So how he's doing it.
Yeah.
Is kind of skirting the line there, you know, and is it legal? Should the regulators come down? Should it be up to the individual? I mean, he knows what he's doing. He knows what his following is. He knows that, you know, if he says, I want to buy this, you know, it's just like, you know, Dave Portnoy this summer, remember, had his crew. Right. And he had big reach, and, you know, they all piled into, you know, whatever stock. So is it legal? I don't know. I mean, it's technically it's legal, but you know, I think it's like a moral, ethical thing within yourself you have to kind of like resolve.
Well, and I mean, and the ironic thing and the larger comment is, I mean, Wall Street firms have been doing this for years, right?
Right.
Goldman goes and takes a position, oil, and then they get all their clients in it, and
right.
then they come out with a call at 65. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're doing it too.
The bank's doing it too. It's just the banks are, you know, the banks have 365, you know, employees writing reports, sending out to hedge funds, and it may take a year for them to do it. Where now you have Twitter and you can have one tweet and boom, it's done.
Yeah, so then I think about it, and we're going to go back to commodities in a second, but so I think about, remember when Bill Ackman went on CNBC March 23rd?
Yes, and cried.
and cried and basically said, you're killing my grandma and my grandpa, and we have to shut down for 30 days, which in hindsight, I would have taken the 30-day shutdown and then get back to life. But like Hilton is worth zero. At the same time, it turns out that he was actually short the market and ended up covering like all his losses, which seems unbelievably disingenuous. But
I agree.
The market wasn't functioning properly. And I think we can all agree we shut down, and therefore, like, what was anything worth? Probably zero. The Fed stepped in, printed huge amounts of money. There was probably more, and we'll see like a movie like The Big Short come out in 10 years that'll show like so many firms were on the brink of bankruptcy because of their leverage that like banks would have imploded. So I get it. So the market's not functioning properly. The Fed steps in. The market is not functioning properly right now either.
I was going to say the market still isn't functioning properly. Look at it.
but it seems like the Fed said, well, if it's down, people get sad. We can't have it down. But if it's up and it's not functioning properly, where short squeezes are happening, I mean, it's like literally like a frat house party in the stock market.
Yeah, it's literally it is a casino. It's literally a casino in some of these stocks. I mean, some of these stocks you've never heard of are having huge squeezes. You know, and I mean, that's not normal. And you know, I mean, actually, and if you look at like, I mean, last night even China PBOC withdrew liquidity from the market for the second time. And I was like, why is China the adult in the room today? You know what I mean? Because they are seeing an asset bubble. So they're trying to withdraw liquidity before it becomes a gigantic mess. So, I'm sure the Fed is watching what they're doing, right? And so it'll be interesting to see if the Fed just, pours another punch bowl for us all, or tells us to get sober for a couple hours.
The real issue, right, is you have a whole bunch of people who are working from home, therefore aren't really being watched by their boss.
Right.
And the people who have generally kept their jobs and can work from home are the non-essential workers not making $15 an hour. So they haven't been going out for dinner. They haven't been going to sports. They haven't been doing things. And now the stock market, it's so much like 2000, where everyone is just buying and the stock market only goes up. And the only way the Fed can stop this is they need to come in and say, we're going to let price discovery happen. We're selling our municipals. We're selling our ETFs. We're selling our bonds. And they could crash the market 35%, and people will blame the Democrats, which then doesn't work for 2022. And so we're like stuck in this.
We've been stuck in this cycle since 2009. I mean, we've been stuck forever.
It's very depressing. But how do you think this all ends? Because everyone knows it's a bubble. I mean, people want to tell me it's not a bubble, but it's a bubble. So,
it's definitely a bubble, and I think the smartest thing would, it took a black swan event, took this virus, right? For the market to basically crash, right? Well, not crash, but, just let some air out of the bubble, right? The problem is that we had our chance at that time to kind of make it right? But no. And all of a sudden we had emergency meetings, rates to zero. It was like nuts. The central banks were freaking out, right? And so they pushed all this liquidity, and this is the end result of it. It takes a while for it all to filter in the system, but you keep adding on and adding on and adding on, and this, that, and we're buying everything, and then here you go.
So I want to go back to energy for a second. And I've had this thought too, right? So Biden, if they truly care about climate change, and I'm not a climate change skeptic. What I am is I'm a trade-off skeptic, in that people don't realize that, like, if it's not windy and sunny, then if you lose power and it's 110 degrees, your house nobody wants brownouts. Everyone expects that we can flip things on. And so I don't truly believe that this is about climate change, because 74% of the coal-fired electrical generation in the world is in Asia. Right. So if we really cared about coal, we'd be focusing on encouraging China to put in wind and solar instead of coal, because they're going to grow demand.
And they say they are, but they're not, right?
They're not. No, because coal is cheaper. And
of course, but they're like, sure, we'll go along with your climate, change agenda world as we build some more coal plants over here. You know what I mean? Like, they're just saying that to appease people. They're not actually making a lot of effort.
Yeah, and so then people want to push $3 trillion in the Green New Deal, which, let's say the profit margin on that, given the way government spends money, is probably 30 to 50%. So there's $1.5 trillion of real profit, uninflated, that's available to just go rebuild perfectly good infrastructure. Right. And so, but it's been dawning on me that with the US government just printing money, if Biden really wanted to be serious about climate change, why wouldn't he go back to all the companies that have Fed leases and buy them back at some valuation that they're happy with? And then he can just put it's sort of like there's a conservation easement where you could sell your waterway and it can never be developed. So the US government could go print, I don't know, $100 billion, which isn't that much, and just buy back the federal leases from companies. Then those companies would be flush with liquidity and could then pay off their debt, which means that the market functions. And there we go. I understand that's bad for energy independence, but what do you think about that solution?
Well, I think that, here's what I think. I think that won't happen. And here's why I think that won't happen. Because I think realistically, it sounds nice to say we want to, you know, be green, we want to be green, we want to be green, but I don't think they'll go as far as like nobody really wants to commit to it, right? Because it's too many American jobs. You know, there's too much on the line. There's too many lobbyists. There's, you know, too much money wrapped up in the, I mean, the oil industry brings a lot of money to the United States. So, you know, just cutting that off, you know, whereas wind and solar are not going to bring those dollars to the United States as in, you know, pure revenue, right? Because we're not exporting them. I think people don't really want to entirely commit, else they would do something like that, or, right, you know, they would pass these kind of laws, but I just don't foresee them happening because of the massive implication of, you know, how much money that is.
So with Biden in for the next 4 years, or at least his administration, depending on his health, right, and the 25th Amendment, would you be buying energy company stock if that was the way you were going to play this? Would you be buying Canadian companies or would you be buying American companies? Because I mean,
actually, I'm buying both at this time personally. You know, you know, I think there are some Canadian companies that are, you know, said to do really well. So, you know, I think it's best to be diversified in kind of in both countries, to be honest. I mean, obviously, really look at, you know, U.S. companies, because, you know, we've had a ton of bankruptcies. We've had, you know, a ton of closures, you know, ton of 13s, not just 11s, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you have to kind of, you know, do your due diligence, but you know, for the long haul, I personally like both Canada and the US, believe it or not. You know, what one thing could happen, right, is if they make leases permanent, if they make, you know, ban new leases permanent, you could have a situation where companies just try to, you know, companies that, you know, are up for renewal, you could have a situation where they're just going to drill the hell out of it, right, and get as much as they can before their permit's up, because they're not going to be able to renew it, right? So you could have a situation, if that comes to fruition, where you have a whole bunch of production come up on the market from drilling in federal land. So that is something kind of to be aware of, and, you know, why I'm personally watching that issue very closely. If this does become something permanent, then we could have that kind of situation happen.
Yeah, and I think the subtext to a lot of that is oil and gas companies have never been known to really stick to a schedule. So I always laughed when I was at Anadarko, like our drill schedule, it'd be made for like a year, and then like the week before, no, we're going to change this and change this, and so therefore pipelines wouldn't necessarily be ready to go. And midstream guys always complained that E&P would just, oh, well, you didn't say you were going to go there. On federal land, if you can't get right-of-ways and you can't get permits, and then there's a flaring ban, that's going to be a major issue. So you are going to have some challenges. What about oil versus natural gas?
Well, I mean, I think that,
you like better.
I like both, but right now, you know, with this green push, you know, natural gas, I think, you know, that's been really beaten up, you know, in the US. I mean, Waha was like negative this year twice. You know, so that's really been beaten up. And I think that, you know, as people are looking for solutions, trying to, you know, sort of transition between oil to these renewables, I think, you know, there is a possibility they could find a happy medium in natural gas. We're already kind of seeing, you know, California overturn some rules. We saw like Sonoma overturn. They said they wanted to ban natural gas in new construction. That was overturned. You know, a couple other areas that is being challenged as well. So, you know, I think that natural gas is a happy medium, even though then, you know, it's very difficult to invest in natural gas, right? Because it's such a waste, because there's so much flaring and things of that nature. And there's so much of it. So, you know, again, choose wisely. But, you know, I do think that I'm more vested in
oil companies than I am, solely natural gas companies. But, I do really like it, especially if I'm looking foreign, and I'm looking at like the East Med corridor, right? Those companies are doing really well, and companies that are over there, CVX is over there, Noble's over there, Dalek Energies over there, that have all done extremely well in that area. So, I'm looking at foreign companies actually, more so than American companies for natural gas plays.
I totally agree. I think natural gas is the fuel of the future once people realize that we need the backup. But to your point, there's so much of it right now in the firm transport in the Appalachian region, or Appalachia, as some people will say, depending on your pronunciation. But those firm transport agreements are going to force gas up, so that companies don't have to pay for it. And therefore, you're going to have more supply than you need until you have a massive level of switching, which, as you said, with EVs is a long way out. Right. Now, for those who follow you, tell us something a little bit about yourself. Maybe not too personal, but something that might surprise people about Tracy that they didn't know before. Because I got to admit, I'm such a huge fanboy of yours. I'm getting all giddy. It's like I'm interviewing Vicky Hollum right now, but like the Twitter equivalent.
That's hilarious. I don't know. I share a lot of personal stuff on Twitter, and I think that helps that people get to know you a little bit better and get to trust you a little bit better and things like that. So, I kind of shared a lot, kind of personal things on Twitter. I cook a lot. I have my Shy Girl Cooks channel, which not everybody may know because it's like a locked account, but it's my cooking channel.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Everything. I don't know. I literally cook everything from meat. I cook a lot of meat.
Meat is good. I'm 100% with you. Meat is good.
I cook a lot of meat. Carnitas, rabbits. I don't know. A lot of meat dishes.
Where is the first place you're going to travel when the world opens up?
Oh my God, I want to go everywhere. I love to go back to Europe, but they need to, kind of open up again. But, I would love to, go on a vacation in Spain or Greece, somewhere warm. It's freezing here. I would love to go to Europe. I'd love to go to Asia. I'd love to go, I'd like to go to a lot of places that I haven't visited yet. Like I've never been to India. I kind of really want to go to India. I think that would be, amazing. Singapore. I think I would probably go to places that I've never been before first.
That does seem like the people who talk about the roaring 22s does seem to talk about the pent up demand. We'll close with this question, I guess. Actually, I want two more questions. One is, do you agree that the roaring 22s is going to be, because clearly 90% of the assets in the world are held by the top 10% of people. And so the economy, as much as we like to pretend like the bottom 40% even matter, my learning from 2020 is they don't. And so you have all these people whose stock accounts have gone up. They own all the wealth. They can afford the private jets, the expensive hotels, the big trips. And those trips have been stopped. So they're just going to go crazy. And they're going to spend like nuts, which is then going to trickle down in the economy and put people back to work. Do you buy into that theory? Or do you think that there's more hiccups that, the vaccine might not be as effective? This thing's with us forever. People are scared and don't go back.
Yeah. I'm not on the doom train. There's therapeutics, the vaccines are working, I think, virus is going to virus, it's going to mutate, but, we'll adapt like we have to every other virus. Right. And I think that, I think it's going to take some time, obviously, to sort of like transition in that, because they've gotten people so scared, right, about this, that they're afraid to leave their houses, and they're, so, when they open up, people are, I think there's going to be a little bit, not everybody, but you're going to have some people that are very skittish, or some people like me that just can't wait to get the hell out of here. Right.
Right.
So, it's going to be different for everything. I think that it will definitely help the economy. It should help, if they start opening up borders again, it should help tourism everywhere. And things like that. So, I think that we're definitely going to have some hiccups just because of the kind of mentality right now and how scared people are. And you kind of have to, deprogram people after that a little bit. You know what I mean? And it might be a few years out, but, on the flip side of that, I know a ton of people, myself, my group of friends that, can't wait to get out. And people are at home and have been saving and haven't been going out to dinner and haven't been spending their money like they used to. I mean, look at personal savings. It's gone way up during all of this. So people will have some money to spend.
Well, I sincerely hope you're right. So the last question for you is, if you could go back, I mean, clearly you're about 30. So if you could go back, if you could
love you.
If you could go back 8 years, or, just randomly to when you were 22, and you had some crazy time machine, and you're not allowed to tell your old self to buy GameStop, because like with butterfly theory and we all know from Back to the Future, you can't change the future. But what advice would you give yourself from when you were younger that would make you, I don't know, happier today, or have got to the things now sooner, that would make you a happier, better person in your career and in your life?
I think I would say, I work really, really hard. So I think I would have told myself to, take some more time off, right. To refresh. Cause whenever I actually did, I came back like so much more focused and so much better. And I could look at markets a little bit more, objectively. I wasn't all, caught up. And I think that would have helped me make better decisions overall, is kind of, taking a few more breaks, because I think that's just really healthy for you to be able to objectively look at not just your business, or the market, but yourself, and what you want around you.
I love it. I totally agree. And Tracy, it's been wonderful to spend the time with you. I always enjoy what you say and the way you comment on the market. So we will have you back. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Until next time, you can follow us on our blog. I'm getting really excited with our weekend investigative journalism, because no one else seems to be looking into some of these things. I will look at the GameStop short retrospective, but we need a little bit more time to see this thing play out. Until next time, be safe, be good, have a great day, and bye for now.